I want to tell you, a lot of my friends are older than I am. I think older people have a lot to offer. I think that they have a lot of wisdom, and sometimes I just like to be quiet and listen. My neighbor is one of those people, he's not afraid to do anything, and he's always wanted to have a piece of land, and he finally has it. And that's my neighbor Guido. Y'all have met Guido before. It just so happens he texted me last night with a problem relating exactly to what we were going to talk about in today's video. He's a great dude. This is not meant to knock Guido, but this is meant to talk about some of the things that are important. And one of the main things we're going to talk about is how do you get your equipment ready for spring when it's been sitting for a while. In Tennessee, our equipment sits throughout the wintertime. We don't really have anything to do with it. We don't have snow to push with it. You know, it sits for a few months. You know, he's trying to get out there to start doing some spring chores, and you're about to find out what happens. So let's get down there. So our ride for today is going to be a Massimo T-Boss 550. You fixed it. I fixed it. Well, y'all know my neighbor Guido. If you don't by now, Guido, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Well, as Kurt, I was doing some bush hogging and running over some small sapling trees out in the bush, and I hit a tree that was bigger than this bush hog was designed to hit, so it got hung up on that. It stopped the bush hog, and I realized it was canted very severely to one side, and what I had found, this pin right here holding this arm either it broke or it came out. This arm was loose, the bush hog was deeply cantered, this pin right here was gone.
You gonna go find it?
I tried to go find it, took a floor magnet out there and tried to find it, see where it was at. It was a needle in a haystack, the haystack won. The needle was not to be found, even with a magnet out in the field. So I went to the dealership this morning, got a new pin. He said that happens not infrequently, but happens occasionally, where the pin can either break or it can either come out. And he said that can happen also if you hit something very hard with a cutter, jams a cutter, sometimes that pin will break or whatever. And it's good that it did because it protects these arms from bending. So I went ahead and then jacked this side up, evened it up, was able then to line that hole back up, put the pin in, and now I was just about ready to take the jack out and then see this, try to readjust the side and make sure everything works. A much easier fix than I thought it was going to be, and it really looked worse than it really was.
So Guido, what kind of tractor is this? You want to walk us through it real quick and give us a minute of what kind of tractor you have?
The Coyote NX 5510, 55 horsepower tractor with a KL6010 loader. It's a hydrostatic shift on there, hydrostatic shift for transmission. Got a great cab. I think we've got it locked.
Oh,
to keep you out of it.
Nice operator cabin, hydrostatic, so it's, you know, basically forward reverse, and it's a nice looking tractor. Because I have a Coyote also, sometimes I come and use his and he doesn't know it. I put hours on his tractor, use his diesel, because it's just a lot better to do that because he can afford it.
Yeah. It's money bags over here.
But no, well, I'm glad you got this done, Guido. It looks good. You did a good job. It's always fun to visit with Guido, kind of get his take on things. But right now, we need to see if the tractor's going to start because it's been really cold. I bet you that battery's dead. Ugh. Now it's heated up a little bit. Okay, let's take a look and see if this thing will start. So if you're new to the channel, this is your first time here, this is a Coyote RX 7320 tractor. It is a 73 horsepower tractor, 60 some odd to the PTO. It's a very nice tractor. It's a very powerful tractor. It's about 3.5 years old, and the battery's about 3.5 years old. And like I said earlier, in Tennessee, machines will sit. No snakes, right? Sometimes you gotta check. I think we're good. But I don't expect this to start. I think we'll probably have to jump it. Even though it's warm out, we'll let the glow plugs do their thing right there. Once that light goes off, we'll give it a try. Nope, no dice. We need the jump pack. I think I actually said this, and I'm not paid to say this, y'all. This is just me sharing information with you. That Gulu jump pack, I first saw it with my buddy Josh, Stony Ridge farmer. I'm sure a lot of you know who he is. But I was at his place, and he used it. And I saw him use it a few times on some tractors, and I was like, wow, man, that thing is like, it could do the tractors, it could do his truck, it could do a lot of stuff. I was like, that is something I need to have on the farm because of times like this. So the way this thing works, it's pretty simple. You have the head unit here, and then you have the little jumper cable things here. And that should be fine, just like that, just like that. You open this part up, it's pretty easy. I mean, you have that little color-coded thing. Just goes in like that. This has been in my truck, by the way. I have another one I used to jump some other stuff last week, but well, turn it on. We hit the boost button, and I think that that's ready to start. Let's go give it a shot. I mean, that is a great tool. No matter how you look at it, not marketing. Hold on one second. So no matter how you look at it, again, this is about us building a community and sharing ideas. This is not about me selling you stuff. This is only about $100. They sent this to me, it was awesome. And it is fantastic, works every time. Not paid a nickel to say it, but if y'all are looking to get one of these, I can recommend it. So while that tractor's warming up, I'm gonna go ahead and put it back in its case. It came with a case. Some of the cheaper ones don't come with a case, which I think is kind of lame. I think they should send a case with every one of them. This nice one, which is the, what is this one? I think it's the GT 4000. This is the big one. I would spend an extra 20 bucks or whatever it costs. Get the case, get the nicer one, because you never know. I was actually at my kid's school the other day, and there was a family there trying to figure out how to jump their car. And listen, not a lot of people know how to do that anymore. Pulled this thing out. It was the other one actually keeping the truck all the time, and pulled it out, jumped their car like that, and they were very appreciative. It was raining, and it was just a great opportunity. So anyway, we're not here to talk about this, but on a farm, this thing makes a lot of impromptu appearances. I don't mean to be all over the place today, but I did want to share with you guys one project that's going to be coming up. These two bays, there's two bays right here, one, two. These are going to be built out to be a garage. I need more storage here in the farm. I think everybody always needs storage wherever they are. But the implements, you know, some of these older, more antique implements, those can kind of go or go someplace else. I just have them because I got them real cheap and seem like something that doesn't hurt to have. A lot of this stuff can probably live either outside or build a little lean-to. And I'm going to do either a gravel or concrete floor, depending on cost. Build out a couple garage doors here, which I think will be nice. There's already power out here, it just makes sense. But just figure I'd give you guys a little bit of an update about some things to come. So you should subscribe to the channel. Come along with us, it's fun. It's real life out here, it's good stuff. Okay, now let's get down to the meat and potatoes of this video. So this video is all about what you should do with your machine when you pull it out of storage. If it's been sitting for a few months, it really doesn't matter what time of the year. Here in Tennessee, it's going to be spring because, again, we don't do a lot of stuff in the winter time with our machines. I like the power, I like the size. It's an all-around comfortable, nice machine to operate. But it's a machine, right? Things wiggle loose, and as you saw earlier in the video with Guido's tractor, I mean, things happen, right? And you want to be careful, you want to be safe, and you don't want to damage these things because they're expensive. Like, this stuff costs a lot of money to buy and to maintain. So we're going to talk today about some of the stuff you can do to avoid some problems. You know, we would love to have you watch some videos of it. I'll put some links up here where if you want to watch some other videos of this thing working and doing other stuff on the farm besides just getting looked at and maintained. It's a beast. It does a lot of great work, but it does need some maintenance from time to time. It does need some things to be checked. The two biggest things probably that you're going to worry about on a tractor is the rubber and the bolts, right? A lot of the other stuff is going to be fine. A lot of folks are worried about tractor engines, but they're made so well now that tractor engine is probably going to last a lot longer than that tractor body will. But it's the bolts, you know, all the vibrations on one of these machines. This isn't like a car where it has so many dampening things like shocks and rubber mounts and everything. It's going to vibrate those bolts and they're going to get loose. And the rubber, meaning the hoses and the tires and stuff. So we'll talk about those things as well as some other things to consider. We'd love to have you watch more of our videos. At the end of this video, there'll be a few that pop up. You can, you know, watch any of those. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, you could click that little circle that says Joe the Farmer. It's free to subscribe. I'd love to have you come by in the future and, you know, keep checking in with us and see what's up here on the farm and maybe see this thing work some more. But anyway, let's start walking around this tractor and let's talk about the things we can do to make it last a very, very long time and have a productive season. We've already talked about one thing that's very important, and that was the battery. The battery is something that is, you know, this machine's not doing anything without that battery. So you really have two choices. You can either take that battery out of the machine while it's stored and you can put it on a trickle charger, or you can use something like the Gulu that we have or another kind of jump pack that you can come out here, jump it, run the engine once in a while and keep it going. To charge the battery, I choose the Gulu route because it's easier. I don't want to take a 80-pound battery in and out of the machine and, you know, set it on a charger, whatever. That's the way I do it. Y'all can do it however you'd like to, but this way the machine starts up and that battery is heavy duty. It should last a very long time. When you talk about batteries, then you go to the electrical system. So let me put this loader down. So even with the power off, the loader pressure will come out of there and those valves. We open this thing up. I'm going to share with you probably the thing that I hate more than snakes and spiders, and that's mice. So if you keep your tractor in a barn or if you keep it outside, you're going to have to deal with mice. They love tractors, they love wires, they love coming in all of these little nooks and crannies and coming after these little wires. So before you really start getting to work too crazy with your tractor, take a look at all these little wires, all these connectors, make sure that they're all, still pretty tight, nothing's wiggled loose. Right here on your starter and your solenoids and everything you got going on here, you want to make sure that nothing looks crazy. This all looks great, it really does. Back here, you can see this belt. That belt looks like it's pretty good. That's a fan belt, goes on the alternator. This whole assembly, and this is going to be charging the battery when we let it run for a little bit. You don't have to have a PhD in this stuff. You don't have to be a diesel mechanic to know how to do this stuff. Just a visual inspection's fine. Looking around here, do I see any bite marks? Do I see anything crazy? I don't. There's no nests in here. You don't want this engine block heating up, getting really hot, and having a bunch of brush for a mouse made a nest, decided to have a whole family in here. Next thing you know, you've got to deal with a fire, and that's a big problem because now you don't have a tractor anymore. Right there is where I always, whenever I do maintenance on the tractor, that was February of 23, and I always write what hours are on it and how much time's on it. But you want to look through here, make sure nothing looks out of place, no mouse nest, we're good. Now, something that I'll also do, I've mentioned on the channel many times, I don't remember where I heard this from. I don't think it's mine because I'm not that smart, but at some point I was told that if you keep the hood up, mice will not build and burrow in here. And 100% it's been true. Whenever this thing is closed, I'll find a mouse in here. If I leave it open, even though it's in a barn, I leave this hood up, no mouse activity happens in there. But speaking of mouse activity, this is your air filter. Your air filter housing has a little burper on here. This thing burps out any kind of like dust or dander that could be in the air filter. If you see any kind of, anything that looks like mouse, activity, you're going to want to open this thing up and you're going to want to take this thing off, tap it out. There's no big deal. There's no mice in here. Air filter still looks pretty good. Probably almost time for a change, but we'll do that on the next oil change. Clamp it down real tight and then you move on to the next. All right, so we've talked about the air filter. The radiator screen right here, almost every tractor is going to have a pre-screen element, which is this little thing right here. This is clean, so I'm not going to unbolt it and pull it out, but all you do is you unbolt it, slide it out, clean it, put it back in. I see right here, this is actually not in the track, which it should be. So off camera, I'll unscrew this thing and I'll make sure it's back in that track. It just keeps little rattles down. Okay, so we talked about rubber on the machine. These are obviously rubber, they're your tires. My tires are actually filled with a product called Rim Guard. Rim Guard is made of beet juice. Beet juice is heavier than water. Water's about 8 pounds per gallon. People used to put salt water in their tires because, again, it gives more weight and the salt water wouldn't freeze as easily. But what they found is that it was eating the rims, and then they'd fail and you'd have a mess. Not to mention you'd have to go buy a new rim, and these are not cheap. So this is filled with Rim Guard beet juice. Now I'm looking at my tires here. You can see there's a couple spots where there's some chunks on the tire. That's totally normal. I mean, being out here on a farm with a lot of rocks, we're going to see that, but I'm looking for splits or I'm looking for leaks. This is all just water. Tires look great. Doesn't look like there's any issues here. And then also, while we're looking at the tires, you want to check your bolts. So all of these bolts, we talked earlier about some of the things that are an issue. Bolts and rubber on a machine are going to be a problem. You want to make sure each one of these things are torqued. And what you can do, as you can see, is you can actually make a little mark that will show you where the torque has been. Now these have been torqued so many times that the marker's kind of getting to be redundant, so we're probably going to just change color of marker. But you can see that gives you an idea just to real quickly visually inspect, not just here on your loader mounts, right here, these bolts right there, there. You want to make sure that you have some kind of idea of where everything is, because you don't want any of these kinds of mounts getting loose, because that could be a serious problem. It could be very dangerous. But yeah, these all look like they're still great, torqued. So I'll go around and check all these off camera. So these hoses are prone to failure. You can see right here, this one's been rubbed by something. There's a lot of pressure going through here, but these are steel, belted. They're basically steel pipes with rubber on the outside. But they're flexible, so, very, very heavy duty. But you want to check for any kind of leaks. You don't want to check for leaks while the machine is on, because if there's a pinhole leak, and it's shooting out fluid and you put your hand there, it will cut a hole through your hand. So So you want to check for leaks whenever the machine's dry, not after a wash. Just look for any kind of, you know, little smudge or something that will tell you that there's a leak coming out. This fluid is always coming out of somewhere. So it's not hard to find. If, you know, you had some there, you'd see just a shiny spot. But this all looks really good. And, you know, the loader lines look good. You want to check over here. These all look good. All these connections, you want to make sure you don't see any kind of leaks. Down here in the loader, nothing there. You want to check your fuel tank. Make sure there's no leaks under there. This fuel tank has actually been replaced at my expense because these welds were bad on the RX, which was kind of a sore topic, but, you know, kind of live and learn. And again, looking at the rubber, all looks good. And then you come to the back of your 3-point hitch. You know, a lot of times I'll kind of take a step back and I'll just make sure that everything looks level. If everything looks level, I'm probably in pretty good shape as far as all the pins and everything. But as you saw on Guido's machine, this pin on his machine broke. Now, this is heavy. If these things break in the field, you're in trouble. You're walking back. But that pin right there is the one that broke on his machine, which is a little bit smaller, so it's a little bit more manageable. But you do want to check these things. Now, you want to make sure, is anything loose? Are you missing any of these pins? You see you have some pins down here holding stuff in. Got a pin here holding that in. And again, coming up here, looking at all your different hoses, making sure nothing's leaking, making sure everything's securely in, which it looks like it is. And I'm pretty particular about a tractor anyway, so I'm usually being pretty careful about making sure everything's right. So we're flying through this. This does not take long. There's really no reason not to get this stuff, you know, kind of looked at. And if you run into something that looks like it's too much of a, you know, you're like, hey, this doesn't look right, don't be afraid to call your dealer. We're gonna have some tips here at the end that are gonna be important tips also. We're gonna wrap up here shortly, but one more thing I wanna take a look at here is oil. You wanna check your oil, make sure that your oil changes, you know, your oil quality is good and your oil level is good. Not gonna do that on camera, but you know, you just know where your dipstick is, know where that fluid is, and just know how to make sure that your machine has enough oil. Nothing's leaked over the winter time, especially if you're parked in the grass. I mean, this thing could leak oil and you would never know the difference. But if you're parked on a concrete slab, which I am, I'm pretty confident it hasn't leaked at all. You know, your fuel filter, you want to check there, make sure there's no water in the bottom. This one looks great. No need to change that. And again, we're quickly going through these things. On the back of your machine, you're going to have a hydraulic fluid filter, which will show you how you're doing on hydraulic fluid. This one looks like it's still a little bit low, but we can fill that up and top it off. We have a lot of implements run through there. If you have like a grapple or any, you know, external hydraulic implements, you're going to lose some of this fluid. So it is what it is. Last one that I'd say is any of these grease zerks, make sure you find every last one of them. You can still see there's some green grease on this one, but you want to find every one of these grease zerks. There's one hidden down there. There's one hidden right here on the side that you can't see here. So they're all over the place. You want to crawl under the machine because there's some places that you may not find, like right here, that has a grease zerk too. And you want to make sure you get all of these things. And then also, one thing I almost forgot to talk about is your axle fluid, which again, we got plenty of fluid in there, we're good. Goes without saying to make sure you're probably on a level field or a level surface when you're doing this. Level field. Make sure everything's equal. Make sure everything's even. Okay, before we wrap up, there's really two more tips I want to give you. One is know your limits. If this is not the kind of thing you're into, like I don't think it's hard to work on machines, but I do it all the time. I don't want to make light of everyone's skill set. Some people can do things easily. Some people are very overwhelmed by it. It's intimidating. You know, some of the first oil changes or first fluid changes in these machines, I would have the dealer do it. Reason being is that, like, for instance, this machine has 2 hydraulic filters, hydraulic oil filters. Those things are murder to get off. If you look in any kind of chat room, any kind of area online, and you say, hey, how hard is it to take off an RX 7320's new hydraulic filter? Man, they let them have it on that thing because they are murder to get off. And there's a ton of fluid in there. I would let the dealership do that on the first service. You could probably also have them do the first oil change just to be sure that they're, you know, they're inspecting it, they're there, it's under warranty, all those things. They could say, hey, we see a problem. Know your limits, right? If that's something you want to do, there's no shame in that. If you never want to service a machine, there's no shame in that either. You may not have the time to do it. You may not have any interest in doing it. There's lots of things I hire out because I could do it. I just don't want to. I never want to paint a wall again in my life. I would much rather pay someone to paint a wall than do it myself. I hate painting a wall. Love working on machines. I hate to paint, but everyone's different. That's the beauty of this thing. And if you see something that looks like it's a problem, I would get your dealership to work with you and talk with them and say, hey, what are the options, right? And that's the second point of this. Know who your dealer is. And if you're going to have your dealer service this machine, your machine, whatever it is, make sure you call them early in the spring. They're going to get busy. Everyone's going to want to go and bring these things in. And there's a lot of landscaping companies and construction companies that use these kinds of machines now. And guess what? They buy tons of machines. They're going to have 15 of those things and they're getting worked on in front of you. And they're bigger customers, right? They need to get back to work. And if you say, hey, I really want to get out there and just kind of mow my back pasture, well, the guy that has 15 employees is probably going to take precedent over that. So make sure you're getting out there and communicating with your dealership. Have a relationship with your dealership. I have a relationship with my dealership. So does Guido. He went down there and talked with them. He was set up and fixed by lunch. So it's just a great opportunity to really get to know people. As I've said before, you don't really buy a machine, you buy a dealership. You know, you're not buying a brand, you're buying a dealership. A lot of these machines are commoditized now. They're very similar. You know, a John Deere versus a Coyote versus a New Holland versus a Kubota. I mean, they're all great machines by now. Make sure your dealer works with you because it's a lot of money you're spending. And, you know, listen, you're gonna have some mistakes. You're gonna do some things along the way you need some help with. And you're gonna need a little grace along the way too. So make sure you have a dealership that's kind of cool with you about that kind of stuff. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I hope this was helpful. I hope this brought you some value. If it did, we would appreciate a like. It takes 2 seconds. Subscribe to the channel. That little button down there says subscribe. At the end of the video, you'll see a bunch of videos pop up if you wanna watch some more. You know, click one of those and watch another video. We'd appreciate that as well. Or you can hit that little Joe the Farmer logo and that will subscribe you to the channel. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. We really appreciate you doing that. Hope to catch you in the next one. We'll see you next time. Joe the Farmer, we out.